In the second episode of our Kenyan adventure, we leave Nairobi behind to live towards the south, just some 50 kilometers away from the border with Tanzania. In between the 4 stops on the way there, once again we are confronted with very diverse landscapes, like the stretched and wide open eastern Rift Valley, a huge flatland crossed by a series of trenches marking the splitting process of the African plate. The road to the south seems busier than the one to the north. A new railway in construction, possibly part of the many Chinese investments in the country, seems to be a sign of a growing commercial route. However, the new lines drawn across the land have reframed the logistics of the territory and its inhabitants, leaving some of the wildlife seemingly confused. This time, we're heading to the Loita Hills in the Narok County to meet the Loita Maasai at the edge of the Loita Forest, one of the most pristine Kenyan forests under the exclusive management of the community who lives by it. The Maasai will tell us about the current threats to the conservation status and biodiversity of the forest. They will guide us across the depth of their sacred land to show us the importance of indigenous knowledge for sustainable development and conservation. To be our main guide and connection with the community, this time it will be Henry Saitabao, a Loita Maasai who studied to become an ethnobotanist and works at the National Museum of Kenya.
But below here, whatever settlement you see up to that point, that is the end of the settlement. They are the last villages at the forest edge. Then that will be the forest land, no man's land. Yeah.
The Loita Hills rise up from the bottom of the Rift Valley about 2,300 meters above the sea level. The Loita Forest, also known as the Forest of the Lost Child, spreads out across 33,000 hectares of land over the hills and occupies part of the ancestral land of the Loita Maasai. Needless to say, the forest holds for the Maasai an incredibly important role, both for resources and for the cultural practices. We spoke with Charles Saitabao, a local ethnobotanist who was the first person to pioneer biodiversity studies in the area, and together with the community-based organization Friends of Loita Forest, advocates for its conservation. He helped us understand more clearly the important role the forest plays for the community and how their destinies are strictly connected.
The Loita Maasai have for a long time remained a traditional community whose lifestyle is basically pastoralism. It has not put a lot of strain on forest resources in terms of exploitation of forest products. The forest traditionally is attached to the people very closely because of their culture and traditions. The trees are considered to possess life, and use of those species by the community are supposed to convey life to the people, I think. The forest is, to some degree, the cathedral of the people, owing to the fact that the chief Laibon uses the tree species here, certain species, for rituals and so on. To a large extent, the forest has been conserved due to these practices. The community loves the forest so much. Anybody thinking about Loita associates the community with the forest. It is part of them. And without it, they can't survive.
Charles explains to us how a mix of pastoralism, a traditional lifestyle, and the distance from the main settlements has allowed the Loita Maasai community to sustain itself perfectly without impacting on the environment. But in the last decades, the changes in the climate patterns has forced the community to transform their habits and main source of sustenance.
10 years ago, we have started seeing changes because when we used to receive the wet season, it would rain for not less than 6 months. But in the last 10 years, we've seen that there has been a change because we started receiving short rains, and you could not be able to distinguish between the short rains and the long rains because the long rains started raining within a very short period of time, like 2 months. Before these changes came, we used to experience rains, short rains from September to the month of January. So we used to miss rainfall for only 1 month of January. And then we begin the long rains that will rain from February to June, July. So during that time, you could only experience a dry season in a year, maybe in 2 months.
I've mentioned before climate change impacting seriously on the lower lowlands, the grassland areas and the woodland or bushland areas, lack of water resources, lack of forage. During those times, they all shift to the forest. Now, due to climate change, pastoralism can no longer sustain human needs. So the Loita Maasai have now opted again to turn to subsistence agriculture. Cultivation contributes to improving food needs or food security in households, and to some degree also, it also contributes to family or household incomes. People need to take their kids to school. People need to pay for other services based on their needs. So cultivation is an option for them to meet those needs. Now this has got its own threats to biodiversity because of cultivation and forest encroachment. Some trees or vegetation has been destroyed or removed to pave way for cultivation.
Along the streams, you'll see there is a lot of lifestyle changes. And most of these lifestyle changes are a threat to the forest. And so we feel like we are so much challenged being the younger generation who are taking this forest from our elders when it is so conserved. And we are also feeling like, I don't know how these things can be done in a way, this forest can be conserved, but as much as community will also have some income from out of the forest, but not harming the forest.
So there is this need of improving livelihoods. It is critical also that people access education. Critical also that people want a modern lifestyle. This can only be met by improving family or household income levels. We would get a project that can help us to utilize forest products, at the same time conserving the environment, the forest resources. Biodiversity conservation may only succeed when traditional community practices are given a say in forest management practices, because the modern measures will attempt to take user rights and community responsibility of conservation to alien people who have no attachment to the forest.
I think it's time to drink.
I still feel there is a big need to fill the gap which I know still exists, the documentation of indigenous knowledge in relation to conservation, Maasai cultural practices, and individual plant uses by the community. And also to help in documenting indigenous knowledge, which is also threatened due to modernity.
We are going to take the conservation mantle from our elders. So that's why we are here with them, learning a lot of things with them. Maybe we've not done that much like how the old Wazes did, because we went to school when we were very young, so we never practiced Moranhood. But we are learning a lot of things from them.
It is important in the sense that we can still use that knowledge for development purposes. Friends of Loita Forest have taken up there for that challenge. We are eager to look for partners, bring about this change in our community.
Charles and his community-based organization, Friends of Loita Forest, showed us the importance of including indigenous communities and their traditional approaches in the process of constructing biodiversity conservation models. Modern conservation techniques, together with traditional community practices and knowledge, can ensure both the protection of the environment but also its sustainable use by the community who lives in it, allowing them to grow and prosper while keep safeguarding the forest from potential overexploitation.
It's tasty, and then Kennedy starts chuckling and going, "It's Billy. I don't know, starts burning, and then he tells you, I just chew it with my teeth and don't let it touch my tongue or lips after I've just been mushing it around in my mouth."
You learn by experience, so you know for next time what to do.
Not trust anything you say.